I get it, you're staring at a list of high-end desktops, wondering if you're about to toss a few $100s at something that will end up gathering dust. You've probably already Googled best PC for mixed work and gaming and seen a million glossy ads promising no compromise. The real question is whether this Dell Pro Tower actually delivers on the promises that matter to you, and whether it fits into the space, budget, and workflow you have right now. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of day-to-day you might be living. Imagine you're a freelance video editor who spends mornings cutting 4K footage, afternoons answering client emails, and evenings diving into a couple of rounds of competitive shooters. You need a machine that won't stall when you throw a big Premiere Pro project onto the timeline, but you also don't want to spend a fortune on a workstation you'll only use for light gaming. That's the sweet spot this Dell Tower aims for. The most obvious draw is the 20-core 12th Gen Intel i7 chip that can boost up to 5.4 GHz. In practice, that translates to a very fluid experience when you have multiple demanding apps open. I've seen users run a full Photoshop suite, a couple of browser tabs with heavy JavaScript, and a background render in DaVinci Resolve without feeling the lag that cheaper CPUs show when they hit the 7,080% CPU usage mark. For a small team of designers sharing a single workstation, the ability to spin up a virtual machine for testing while the main OS stays responsive is a real time saver. The 32 GB of DDR5 RAM is another practical win. It's enough to keep a large After Effects composition, a 3D model in Blender, and a few background services humming simultaneously. In real-world testing, you'll notice the difference when you switch between a 4K video timeline and a heavy spreadsheet macro. There's no stutter, just a smooth transition. For anyone who regularly works with large datasets or multi-track audio projects, that memory headroom is worth the price premium. Now let's talk storage. The 1 TB SSD is fast, but it's also a limited amount of space if you're handling several 4K video projects per month. In my own setup, I keep the SSD for OS, applications, and active projects, then rely on an external NAS for archival footage. If you're planning to install a massive library of games or keep every render on the internal drive, you'll need to budget for an extra drive or an external solution. That's the hidden trade-off that catches a lot of buyers off guard. Connectivity is where the Dell Pro Tower shows a subtle, yet practical, advantage. It comes with HDMI, DisplayPort, and a USB-C that can do both data and video. For a content creator who uses a dual-monitor setup, the ability to plug a 4K monitor directly into the DP while using HDMI for a second screen means you won't need any extra adapters. The USB-C is handy for fast external SSDs or connecting a laptop for quick file transfers, something office teams often appreciate when they need to move large project files between devices. On the flip side, the tower's design is purposefully utilitarian. It's a sleek, carbon black case that will fit in most office cubicles, but the aesthetic isn't something you'd showcase on a streamer's desk. If you care about having a PC that looks as flashy as the games you play, you'll probably want a custom-painted case or RGB lighting. The Dell's front panel also lacks a dedicated headphone jack, which means you'll need to reach around to a rear port or use a USB dongle for audio, something that can be a minor annoyance during long editing sessions. Another practical consideration is upgradability. Dell's OptiPlex line is known for being fairly easy to open, and the tower's interior layout allows you to add another SSD or a larger GPU without too much hassle. That said, the power supply is a mid-range unit that can comfortably handle the stock graphics card, but if you plan to swap in a top-tier RTX 4090 for 4K gaming at max settings, you'll likely need to upgrade the PSU. That extra cost isn't baked into the base price, so be aware of the ceiling you might hit if you want to push the performance envelope later. So who should actually buy this machine? If you're a small business owner who needs a reliable workhorse for daily office apps, occasional CAD work, and the occasional "let's unwind with a game" session, the Dell Pro Tower hits a sweet spot. Its enterprise-grade components mean you'll get longer driver support and a warranty that's more robust than the typical consumer desktop. Remote teams that need a stable workstation for video conferences, data analysis, and light rendering will find the 32GB RAM and fast SSD a genuine productivity boost. On the other hand, if you're a hardcore gamer whose primary focus is ultra-high frame rates at 1440p or 4K, you might feel constrained by the default graphics solution and,